It's meant to be a film about melancholia. It's kind of a two-sided film because it has to do with this girl that has a depression. At the same time, strangely enough, there's a planet approaching, also called Melancholia. I'm very melancholic, or anyway, I have my neurotic sides, and I always expect the worst.
All right, this is it.
Okay. What star is that?
I don't know. John, you're a bit of an expert on stars, ain't you?
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, yes, you would.
Which one are you looking at exactly?
The red one. For me, Justine was a very sensitive, creative human being that felt things maybe sometimes more than other people. And to me, her relationship with the planet turns into almost her being a representation of the planet towards the end. And so it almost feels like she has some kind of psychic relationship in the beginning of the film. But I would say that sometimes the world is too much for her.
Melancholy is not a clinical term. It's a kind of a personality trait or a character. It has a lot to do with the explanatory style of a person. And that means the way they are thinking, the way they are approaching the world and what happens around them, and especially the way they are making dramas inside their own head.
Claire is in control at the beginning of the film, or she wants to be in control. She's also wanting to be in control of her sister's fear, her sister's sickness, and trying to reassure her in a very stupid way. But it's the only way she knows how to react to that kind of sickness.
During the wedding, I think Justine really, really wants so badly to like be normal and be in love and have this relationship work. And I think that this is the closest thing that she's had to something really working, and she's really, really, I think, wants more than anything for this to work. But I think, you know, her true emotions so overcome, you know, this feeling that she's just fighting against. It just overcomes her and wins.
Well, for me, Justine is the sick one, the one who needs to be cared for. And Claire is the one that becomes sick in the end and who can't cope with the reality, whereas Justine can.
It's mostly learned, and you learn it from significant people like the mother or the father or the people who show you how to approach the world in your life.
I just have one thing to say. Enjoy it while it lasts. I myself hate marriages.
Gabby, please.
Especially when they involve some of my closest family members.
It's very easy to tip the balance from melancholia to depression.
What was starting to boil up in her at the wedding overflowed into something, a major, you know, depression. And so that physically, you know, disables you in every way. And so that's that, you know, many people have experienced. You know, you don't want to take a shower, you can't do anything, you don't want to, your food doesn't taste right anymore, and you don't want to talk to, all you want to do is sleep.
You'll see, you'll like it. I promise. Come on.
Claire is a desperate sister that really wants to save Justine from her melancholy.
Claire can relate to Justine in the way that she can be a nurse to her, but there's no other relationship than that. And that I found very interesting. So in the talking about their relationship as sisters, the important thing for me was to be the older sister, the caring sister.
Justine doesn't want to be saved, but Claire wants to do something. She wants to get a little tool and control it for her and tell her, well, it's going away, nothing is happening.
It's smaller.
And she is taking responsibility for all the different things that Justine has actually just accepted.
Imagine the worst thing possible. That's right, Clay. Sometimes it's easy being me.
That means she's working really hard, Claire. And she don't see a result, actually. She gets more and more desperate during the different scenes of the film because no matter what she does, she can't change this thing.
Where are you going?
To the village.
But this has nothing to do with the village.
Get in.
There was a healing process towards the end for her in order to be at peace with what's going to happen. And her version of that was very different from her sister's version of that. I mean, she's kind of hysterical, the more human way of reacting to something like this, if you know that's going to happen. And my version of it was very different.
Claire is representing the sane, normal human being who has, compared to Justine, something to lose. She has a family. She's not nearly as egocentric as Justine is.
Do you know what I think of your plan? No. I was hoping that you might like it. I think it's a piece of shit.
So the two sisters, one of them kind of being a melancholic type, and the other one not. They would kind of change parts during the film, the closer they get to the apocalypse.
I think for me the real disaster in the film is fear. But I think it's because I relate to that, having played that character. Fear, apprehension, the fear of losing everything.
People who have never had anxieties and suddenly experience one, that's kind of, they break down completely because they don't know what it is. Anxiety, and when you've had them, then you know that the anxiety in itself is not dangerous. Of course, there can be a situation that provokes the anxiety that can be dangerous, but the anxiety in itself is just some physical or mental reactions to something.
If the catastrophe actually comes true, the shoe fits. And that actually makes a melancholic person happy in the quiet, accepting, knowing way. They know it's coming, and when it comes, it's fine.
I was building kind of a safe place for her son and a place that he could believe he'd be safe, so that, and almost, bringing us together and, and I tried to almost channel some sage-like feeling. It felt like I was in like a sweat lodge or something spiritual. So I tried to make that come across by the end of the film, that try and be as peaceful as I could for his sake and her sake, and to bring us together.
I hope, for instance, that I would be okay, dying, because I've been through so many times. But you never know. Maybe it works differently. That you are really afraid because you rehearsed it so many times. I think it's the most happy ending I've ever made. Because there's actually some people that kind of suddenly come together and agree, or it's kind of it's not so good that the world goes on, of course, but but they the sisters kind of for the only time in the film really kind of embraces each other. Is there a deeper meaning? Probably somewhere. Very early on in the project, I chose the music from Wagner, which is the prelude to Tristan and Isolde. That is not what you would consider melancholic music. That is what you would call romantic music. That has kind of somehow turned the whole thing into a very romantic film, also in the images and stuff. It is highly romantic.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've waited a while for this. A toast to the bride and the groom.
Justine and Michael.
Justine and Michael.
We've gone for some very yellow, very warm feel, kind of trying to make happiness, feeling of happiness and party. And then in the second part of the film, we've gone more blue, more melancholic.
I started by using the handheld camera to make it easier for the actors, actually.
So, what can I say without talking about your mother?
To have a camera that that the actors they shouldn't know where the camera was, so they didn't kind of had to try to look good from one side, or all this, or play to the camera or whatever.
Hello, everyone. We're going to move to the living room so that we can clear some tables. Then the newlywed will dance.
From Dogma, we had some rules about that we wanted to make a film that looked more like a documentary. And now it's kind of a thing that you could say it's kind of nowadays it's considered to be very conservative. If it's still a handheld camera, that's something you did 10, 20 years ago. But for me, it gives a life and kind of a vibration. My goal was to operate the camera myself, but it seems it was I wasn't up to it.
Lars's guidance concerning my handheld work was mainly telling me not to refine my my movements. He's always looking into faults and mistakes, and so as a cameraman you usually second time you do a take, you have kind of there's always something from the first time you want to do better, and Lars, he would spot that right away, and he would say, "Don't do that. Don't refine. Just go. Keep up. Follow the energy. Follow the acting. Don't worry about mistakes. I love mistakes. Mistakes are gifts. It's very much about being intuitive all the time and kind of refresh your mind every time you do a take. And so in that sense, I think the camera work can probably be kind of like acting. I think one of the basic things in Lars Von Trier's camera style is that the camera must not know anything of what's going on. It has to react instantly or impulsively to what's happening, and we do that by not preparing anything. But even the actors, they don't know what to do. They don't get any directions for the first take. You do the first take and nobody knows anything. They just do whatever they believe is written in the script, what's written in the script, and then Lars adjusts from there. So you never do what you would call traditional coverage. You would never go in and pick up a close-up or anything like that. You will do masters where the camera, in documentary style, tries to catch what's going on.
I'm sure people get seasick. It's a little bit like if you look at the frame all the time and it's a handheld camera, then you get really seasick. But if you kind of go so much into the film that you look at what is inside the frames and not the framing itself, then I think you're okay. It's like, you know, when you drive a car, you seldom get sick from driving.
Well, very early in the process, we started looking at large-scale destruction, and I showed Lars some of my favorite scenes of, like, the end of the world. And for one of them, which is a fairly well-known scene of nuclear war, I showed it to him, and he just looked at me and said, "Okay, now you know everything about what this movie should not look like."
Some of the shots in the film are with a lot of special effects, even though you don't see as so much as special effects. But when you do that, you probably, or you would normally put the camera on a stand and do it as a fixed shot. And then after that, when you've done the work, you would kind of put a little movement to it. And it lifts the scene so much.
My God.
For Melancholia, we have been trying to stay away from the most complicated types of effects work, especially for the shooting. It was a very simple shoot, and much of the effects was done with physical stuff on the set and with in-camera effects. And only a very few shots have advanced sort of CGI effects.
Name it up at the planet. Hold on. Is that right?
Yeah.
In 5 minutes, it'll be smaller.
What we're trying to do is to do something that works with the psychology of the characters and with the viewer. And I think it's very strong because we take our time for sort of the build-up. This is close to how you would experience something like a large-scale catastrophe yourself, that maybe you would sense the building up of something, and then the event itself would be very short and violent. We've of course been using some computer-generated images, but most of that is what we call simulation-based images, which means that it's a simulation of real physical processes that is then rendered into an image. And that's what we've been using for the most complicated parts of the film. Lars has a very definite genre or like a whole new visual identity for each project. So for that, it's a new beginning, but working with Lars is an experience that I'm enjoying over and over, luckily.